All right, cancel culture of the past. Hey, Billy Redbeard. By the way, that information came from CNN.com, so, who knows? All right, they're as reliable as the Fox guys. There, I said it to both of them, so now they can shut up. Cancel culture of the past. Hey, Billy Redbeard, longtime listener, first-time writer. So I was listening to an episode of the podcast where the guest starts talking about cancel culture of the 60s in regards to McCarthyism and the Red Scare. My dumbass thought that was in the 50s. I guess the guy saw a Twilight Zone episode and addressed it. Guy concludes that if cancel culture was here 60 years ago, it's never going away. Do people not realize that this shit has always been here? Yeah, people realize that there's always been people trying to end people's career. But in the past, it was always people with power. They achieved something, they got to a certain level, and then they abused their power. Back in the day, the head of a studio could end some nobody's fucking career in a heartbeat. Right? But now I don't think ever in history, somebody that never accomplished anything nobody's ever heard of can end the career of a multimillionaire who has a fucking house with an infinity pool. I mean, that, you got to admit, that's new, right? You know what I mean? And I know that kings have been taken out of power, but like bloodshed happened. If you're going to compare like fucking storming a castle by the serfs or whatever during medieval times to moving your thumbs and hitting send on Twitter, like that's the same thing. I don't know. I think it's pretty amazing type of thing. And as always, what you see is that rich people are not evil. They're just regular people with money. That's all it is. That whole fucking thing where they try to make, white people are evil, the blue-eyed devil and all that. It's like, no, white people are you with unchecked power. When people have unchecked power, regardless, all of this shit, if women ran the world, no, them too, everybody. Everybody with unchecked power, for the most part, it's very rare that you get a Jimmy Carter. Very fucking rare. Somebody that actually has empathy and is a caring human being. And I love to this day that people still like, yeah, but the guy wasn't a good president. It's like, that's because all of those evil sociopaths wouldn't work with the guy. How many presidents? I mean, the guy's, he's out, they all just fucking buy mansions and go to fucking Martha's Vineyard. This guy is like in his 90s. He's still building houses for homeless people. Winning like Nobel Peace Prizes after he was in the White House. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. There's a very rare person, unfortunately. And if we I believe that if, male, female, gay, straight, whatever, if you could get more people like that in power and have them all working with each other, I think we'd be in a lot better position as opposed to just, looking at ties and the colors of them or whatever. Anyway, do people not realize that this shit has always been here? Just in recent memory, everything from McCarthyism targeting imaginary legions of communists to Anita Bryant trying to get every homosexual working in the public sector fired. Yes, but she's in a position of power, right? To the satanic panic of the 80s trying to ban Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, but this is the difference, though. This is the difference with all of that, is those all were organizations that had power. I mean, the PMRC was Al Gore's wife, Tipper Gore. So he at that point was like a fucking, I don't know, what, congressman or a senator. They had power. They had a microphone. They had a platform. Nowadays, it can just be like, somebody that cleans a hotel room. And if the person staying in the penthouse is a fucking asshole and they get it on video, that guy him or her loses their career. That this is a whole new phenomenon. And then you combine that with the abuse of that power, which then when the trial is now on the internet, where there's no rules of libel or slander, and you can really just say whatever the fuck you want to say, which used to be just the world of powerful people with money that they could, they could set the narrative. Now all regular people can do it. No, I think this is like a new thing. And I don't think that like what was happening with Lenny Bruce is the same thing as what's happening to, say, comedians today, where it then goes into their private life. You could always get in trouble for shit that you said on stage, absolutely. But it's just like, he came into the Hooters and, I just felt he was toxic and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you lose your agent. No, this is like a whole, like, I don't know. That's like, there's always been music. Sebastian, not Sebastian Bach, whatever the fucking real guy, classical music, and trying to compare that to, people have always gone to concerts and been a little crazy. People used to go to classical things and then comparing that to people going to like raves and dying and shit. Like shit is, can progress. That was a bad example. Fuck that, the music one. I'm just saying. I don't think that we've been like in a world where made up non-events about individuals who are telling shit jokes in strip malls can be the lead stories on late night news that is allegedly news that isn't news. My whole time growing up, comedians, I never saw George Carlin as a lead story. Like, when Richard Pryor lit himself on fire and ran down the fucking street, yeah. But, when he fucking was shooting up his cars, I didn't hear it. I guess I wasn't watching the news back then, but I just don't think it's, I understand what you're saying. If you're basically saying that since the beginning of time, people have tried to take out people. Without a doubt, they have. They absolutely have. But this thing, I don't know. I think it is morphed in. I guess the musical type of thing, it's just like, jazz was big and now rock and roll is big. And you're like, yeah, it's all music. It's all the same thing. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll go with you on that level. But there's definitely I find it disturbing that people now do what these 24-hour news networks do, where they'll put a headline on a video that's misleading and they'll also edit it in a way where it's just like you literally are like your own news network right now. You are trying to control the narrative of these stories. And the fact that, every single person, for the most part, has a cell phone with a camera and video abilities, and then they can upload whatever they shot, and they decide when they can begin it, when they can end it. There's never been a time like this. There hasn't been. So I disagree with what you're saying. I would say there's always been people trying to destroy people, but with the technology that is available now for anybody to do it, I think this is a new level. How about that? How about we agree that there's a new level? Anyways, there was a congressional hearing where rock stars and rappers had to go before government committees like some trial of Socrates shit to prove that they weren't corrupting the American youth with their damn devil music. This shit never leaves. Yeah, but that's the government. It's always been there. It always will be here. It doesn't ebb and flow. It just changes targets. No. Sometimes its target is far enough away from me personally that we can pretend we don't see it happening. Stop saying we. This is your point. Stop acting like everybody agrees with you. I 100% disagree with you that this cancel culture thing is not some new thing. It's been ramped up. Like I said, back in the day, you had to get into a position of power, and you had to know enough people to control the narrative of what you wanted to have happen. You had to pay people off. You had to do all of that shit. Now, like somebody, in some ways it's good because, if someone's actually doing something and they are super powerful, it gives people who aren't powerful a voice. That aspect of it is good. But with that power comes the abuse of it. And, a lot of the shit that you see out there. So, I disagree with I agree that people have always been trying to take out people, but back in the day, for the most part, it was powerful people doing it. And, everybody walking down the street didn't have the ability to create their own news story with their own thoughts and their own video and their own clips. Look at the fucking clickbait and all of that shit that they have out there that just regular people do that now. Because they know what plays and they know what they have to say to get people to click on it so they can get eyeballs, so they can get people to advertise. There's never been a time in history where every person walking down the street is thinking like they're running their own TV network. And then you combine that with how most people cannot handle positions of power, and you have this shit show that is going on right now. Which I think that it's the similar thing from back then was it's always just been a distraction from what's really going on, what you really should be, paying attention to. Who actually has the money, who really is running things, what direction are we really going in, how politicians are all kind of paid off. They're deliberately underpaid, so they owe people favors. That whole fucking horse shit where you can attach all those things to bills. So horrific things get attached to things that people want, and then we don't get a right to vote on a lot of those, all of that bullshit. I don't know. I disagree with you. I respect your opinion. There you go. Please don't cancel me.
Your sweet spot is you're the everyman that tells it like it is.
Right. Okay.
If you're a white dude who looks like you, then you have to be that guy who tells it like it is, which subtext means it's going to be kind of racist. I'm kind of racist, and I love this beer. I like this guy. This guy speaks to me.
Right. Totally.
But you wouldn't be successful, Bill, if your comedy, I feel like your comedy, your opinions hit with the majority of the people. Everybody that we're talking about that's not represented in the fringes of social media that are, by the way, the ones that are going about canceling everybody because they want to just take everything else down. You wouldn't be successful. That's why.
You guys follow Kyle Dunnigan on Instagram? He did a great sketch about, he had a new reality show about going back in time and canceling people, and he was the canceler.
That's
of course,
amazing.
he ends up getting canceled and all that. You got to check him out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, but in doing this podcast and starting this podcast, Joe is deathly afraid of being canceled. So we have to watch what we say and even do on here. I'm not really that much afraid of it, I guess, because I don't have a lot to cancel.
Well, all it would take is if corporations just backed their talent and really looked at whether it was ridiculous or if there was something there, then you could, it wouldn't be as crazy. But, if you're just going to just sit there and be, my favorite thing is when they go back 7 years and they go, can you believe this happened? And it's like, wait, how old are you? You're 35? You were 28 when this happened. Mm-hmm. It took you 7 years to get offended by this?
Right.
It's like, obviously when this happened, it didn't even register on anybody's radar, and things have changed a lot in 7 years. And then they go back, and if you're in the public eye, it's like, why aren't you where we're at now? But there's no video evidence of the vetters, where they were at. I mean, I said on another podcast, no one can survive a vetting, especially if you're going to tell me what what I was really thinking beyond what what I was thinking more than I do. So I don't know. I don't care. I really don't. So, well, I think that after the bankers nuked the economy in 2008, I like how they didn't get canceled.
That's a great point.
They didn't get canceled. oil companies dictating our foreign policy. None of them seem to get canceled. But that same guy who works at an oil company, if he was at a food court at a mall and he said, "Hey, nice legs," that would be it.
Yeah. Totally.
Is this the kind of person we want dictating our foreign policy?
Yeah, totally. The head of BP who just spilled 1 billion gallons of oil into the Gulf. Yeah, he's fine.
And also just human beings are ridiculously flawed, which is why this whole cancel culture and going back and vetting people, it's like, oh, did you go back and find a mistake I made? Yeah. I mean, you could have vetted today already at 10:34 in the morning. I've already made mistakes.
Right. but those
I haven't said anything that I regret yet today, I don't think.
Those who are doing the canceling, by the way, are basically saying that they're living this perfect existence, and you don't measure up to their fake persona that they're putting out there, because nobody truly lives.
Well, they also act like they speak for everybody, and they don't. What they are is they're very smart in that they know where the money's at. So what they do is they put pressure on the money, and the corporation's mindset is if this is losing money, get rid of it. Corporations are not into right and wrong. They're not into human beings. They're not into nature. They're not into the environment. They're into making money. So all they have to do is put pressure and make it seem like the person they're in business with is going to be a liability. Then they just get rid of them. And the reality is if they just wrote it out for 3 days, you know what they're like? Cancel culture. They're like a pack of meerkats, where they got like this giant poisonous snake, and they're all just sitting there lunging like they're going to do something. And it freaks the snake out. Even though the snake would all have to do is just bite one and kill it, they just sort of psych them out. And the bottom line is this, and I'm not saying that everybody that they've criticized is not worthy of criticism or everything, but just this whole thing where, I like when they cancel somebody, and especially as a comic, which really seems to be the big thing. You can be a banker. We were saying when, for some reason the bankers in 2008 didn't get canceled, but if you tell like a transgender joke, whatever you're supposed to say, and it doesn't go the right way, then you're done. You can cook the economy,
right,
and have the greatest generation eating dog food for the rest of their life, even though they paid into this system. That's fine. But if you tell a joke that they don't like, all of a sudden, and then what I love is if the comedian continues on and wants to go see a show and is sold out the show, they then attack the club owner or the promoter and put pressure on them. So it's like, well, wait a minute, hasn't the people spoken? That they want to go, they still want to see this guy, or at least these 400 or 500 people, and now you're parenting these adults. So I just think then it becomes like, it's like, well, what are you guys doing? Because now you're kind of becoming like the Gestapo of the I guess, I don't know, society, how people are supposed to think.
But I guess the question is, who are you guys? Like, who the hell who's doing the canceling? I mean, it's a collective social media culture that is doing it. Is it a 15-year-old girl who's canceling people? Like, how is this happening?
I think it's a combination of people with, it's a movement. There's always movements in society. So some people are part of that movement. I think a lot of people just enjoy the entertainment of watching somebody have, looking like they have it all, and watching them lose it, and watching them groveling and apologizing. And I just think
and flexing their muscles and
that's another big thing. I felt power. Like that happened with a certain comic where he had already apologized for something, and then was looking, I'm not going to say the name here, was looking at getting a big gig. And then they came back and wanted to apologize again. And it's like, he already apologized. So this is just a show of force. Like, look at us. Like, the way we think, if you don't think the way we think, we are so powerful that we can have a comedian with one of the biggest gigs in entertainment drop to his knees and beg for our forgiveness twice. And
but it's interesting though. What's interesting though is if you have created a persona, you can be immune from some of the cancel culture. I mean, you look at Howard Stern. Howard Stern is Teflon, I guess. You can't touch the guy. If you go back and you look at his career, I mean, how is Howard Stern still on the air? He's my favorite, by the way. But,
this is the thing. It's just
he's untouchable, though. You know?
But you got to look at humor. Humor is like music. I remember in the 80s, we were all making fun of disco, saying disco was terrible. First of all, we were acting like we didn't like it when it was out. And then we were acting like this hair metal, we had all these guys dressed like chicks singing about the devil was the answer. And then by the 90s, that looked ridiculous. And humor is the same way. Like, I love when they go like now they'll go after a guy if a guy just has a young girlfriend. If they think the age difference is too big, it's like, well, you know, things change. It's like, nah, this was never acceptable. It's like, dude, Elvis married a 16-year-old in front of the whole world.
Yeah.
Right.
He was
Jerry Lewis.
The king.
Yeah.
And nobody hit. Well, Jerry Lewis got in trouble because that was like a second or third cousin.
Right.
But yeah, Elvis was smart enough. So there is like, and then what I don't like is I don't like the dishonesty of acting as though, so if you're part of that cancel culture group, it's just like, so you never needed to grow as a person. You don't look back at yourself 10 years ago going, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Look back on a relationship and be like, oh God, like all the signs were there. I should have gotten out of that. I broke this person's heart. I feel terrible. Blah, 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 blah. Like,
yeah, you know, there's no room for mistakes. There's no room for growth anymore because you're immediately just fucked.
Yeah, and it's just because they know where to apply the pressure. They're like jujitsu artists. They get you in the triangle.
You don't fear that though, right? You don't fear being canceled or any way, do you?
Of course I do.
You do.
Of course I do. Well, I mean, if you're going to if anybody can say anything and they don't have to, there's no trial. I mean, who's really safe? I mean,
but how has that affected the way you go about your life and the way you go about your comedy? You know,
it actually made me go a little harder. It's just like, all right, well, I mean, if you're going to get in trouble for this shit, I'm going to go down swing. I mean, but also like I've grown as a person as far as like, you know, there's that thing when you first start being a comedian, you have this sort of cartoon idea of what a comic is. And he's smoking a cigarette and he's got a leather jacket and he's fucking talking about all this taboo stuff. So you try the jacket on. Hey, am I a Bill Hicks guy? Am I Lenny Bruce?
Yeah.
And you know, I went through that period and it's just like, that's not who I am. And then when my life was not going the way I wanted it to, and the more I was sad about not finding love, not getting married, not having kids, the more I was trashing women, the more misogynistic my act got. But it was, when I go back and look at that, I look at it now, it's like, I didn't believe any of that. That was all of my fear of committing to a relationship, dying alone, never having kids. I just didn't have the mental capacity to understand where that was coming from. You know, it's just, but like if somebody would, to look at it now and be like, oh, this is the guy who's going to be the spokesperson for SeaWorld when he said such and such in 2006. You're like, I'm not that guy anymore. I don't believe any of that stuff, but it's like, it's on video. It's like the Nazis. Listen to this. Go. The Nazis' crimes are on video.
Yeah.
They're never getting let off the hook. All of those other guys, Attila the Hun and all these lunatics, Stalin doesn't have enough video. He didn't have enough video to get to really stick to the Mount Rushmore of evil. He just didn't. So, when you really go back and you look like all the slavery and the genocide of Native Americans, it's not on film. Not enough of it. Like when you read what happened, you got to close the book. It's so bad. But if there was video of what human beings did to other human beings, like, I think the Nazis opened that show. Mm-hmm. I think they're hosting that. I would say what we did lasted for centuries. What they did was a decade. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know.
Is there a routine? Shut up, Oliver. Is there a routine?
No, you shut up.
You shut up.
No, you shut up.
Is there a routine
Listen.
that's back there that you have that you go, God, I hope they don't find that. I hope they don't go back and look at that.
No, because I know it's a joke. It's a joke. And it's just like, I can't, listen, you have the freedom to take what I say seriously. But just because you take it seriously doesn't mean I now meant it.
Right.
Okay? And if I tell you that I was joking, I'm the guy who wrote the joke. I know what I was thinking.
But how about today? You were saying before sort of how, your insecurities sort of came out in your comedy and you went hard into it, right? Like with, women, for instance, you weren't married, you didn't have kids, you went hard into that.
I would say all subjects.
But nowadays, though, is that still a part of your comedy? Meaning, are you doing things now that in 20 years you're going to be like, oh, I was, that was me then? Or are you coming from a more pure place?
It's hard to say because I feel like
because you seem like a happy guy right now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the forefront of me understanding whatever I am. Mm-hmm. So to go in I hope I keep learning or whatever, but you also kind of hope that you're done. So that you've completed it. So I don't know. I will tell you this though. I have been having a ball trashing white women.
Yeah. And
just watching how in this whole progressive woke movement, how they somehow divorce themselves of their own white skin and their own white privilege, put it all on white males, and then stuck themselves at the front of the line as far as oppressed people. So I've been having a ball with that. And because it is bullshit. If I see one more blonde white woman, and I just feel like for me it's extra hard because it's me. It's just like, I'm not saying you don't have it harder than me, but why don't you look over your shoulder every once in a while? You might feel a little bit better about where you are in the line of difficulty. If you were to look at the arc, you're almost at the apex.
That's so great.
And what kills me is as guys, you have to sit there and listen to that.
Yeah.
Because you're right here and they're here. I have to listen to them like, they rode over on the Amistad. It's like, no, you came over in an SUV with heated seats. Just stop it.